Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are diving into why men don't really want to date single moms. This is a topic that came up in my last video last week. You guys go check out that video if you haven't yet. What I found in the comment section of that last video was very interesting to me because either men were saying that they were open to dating a single mom or that they had in the past and this is what they learned, or another group saying absolutely not, never do it. No man should date a single mom for these top three reasons. So I want to talk about it because it seems to be a pretty wide split. Like some people were agreeing with me, some people were not. And so what I did first that I'm going to show you today, guys, is an Instagram poll that I took. Here's the voting totals, okay? So my question was, would you date a single mother? 39% men said yes. That was about 2,600 votes. 29% said no. That was about 2,000 votes. 22% said depends on the relationship with the ex. And then 10% said it depends on the kids. So I want to talk about it more. I'm also coming from a position of being in this spot in the past. For you guys that don't know my story, when I first started on TikTok, I honestly was kind of positioned as a single mom, although that term can be defined in different ways. Single moms will oftentimes be defined as like the dad is not in the picture at all, and that wasn't my case. I think that a lot of men will refer to women that have kids that are unwed or divorced as single moms. You know, they're not like hyper defining it, whereas I have found that women will hyper define themselves because they almost take it as a seal of pride, honestly, that if they're a single mom, they're doing it all on their own and the dad's not present at all. And so they kind of take that as like some kind of award. Getting into a little bit more of my own personal backstory, since I haven't been on YouTube all that long compared to TikTok, and I definitely shared my entire story on TikTok. And I realized that a lot of you guys don't know it, is that I was divorced like 3-4 years ago, became a single mom because I have two children. I am in a relationship, have been in a relationship now for almost 3 years. And he was also a single dad at the time. All three of our children in total are pretty young. So like my youngest he'll never remember a time that his biological mom and dad were together. And same goes for his daughter. So, with that being said, I think that circumstances can be very different depending on the single mom, right? And I want to talk about this because single moms get very triggered. I see it all the time on social media. I honestly don't feel like I was triggered like when I was a single mom. I didn't feel triggered by men saying that they don't want to date a single mom because I was hearing that on social media. That is definitely the message that is pushed. But I will say personally, being in my early 30s at the time, that was not what I experienced. And maybe that's just simply because I was still like young enough. My kids were young enough. I look young enough. You know, I'm fit. Like I think I fell into a category where I still got a lot of attention and I still had a lot of men pursuing, and that included even on social media. So I think I can recognize that. And a lot of women like refuse to do so. You know, I've seen it time and time again. Just saw one recently on TikTok where, you know, she looks like she's in her 40s, but she kind of positions herself like she's a 10 out of 10 and that all men should be desiring her and that her kids should not be, you know, of course they shouldn't be labeled as baggage, but they should be seen as like a big positive almost. And it just isn't true. Like a lot of men are not going to feel the same way. And I think that's okay to understand that. It does not mean that you're not going to ever meet the right kind of man. Like at some point, you probably will meet a man that wants to be with you, even though you have children. But I think it's questionable as far as, you know, is that what he would choose ideally? And we know that like we don't choose our partners in an ideal situation. Like we have a lot of factors that come into it. All in all, I think that's why there is differences in opinion depending on the man. So I'm really interested to know what you guys think of this in more detail in the comments. Please let me know what you think, and let me know if you agree or disagree. Let me know what category as a man you fall into as well. I'm breaking it down into three types of men. Number one is the guy that's open to dating a single mom. Number two is like the heck no, absolutely not guy. Like there's no reason to ever go down that route. Number three is the depending on the circumstance guy. And so we're going to talk about if you're falling into this category, which I think quite a few of you are falling into that category, and then the yes category. Actually, according to my Instagram poll, it's about 50% plus that actually are open to it. It's either a yes or it's a depending on. So there's things that I think are important to look out for in the right kind of situation, or if it's not, and like there's a lot of red flags and you should back out of it, and it's not necessarily because you don't want to date a single mom. You are open to dating a single mom. It's just that you need the circumstances to be right, and you want it to be healthy, and you don't want the red flags, and you don't want the extra drama from the ex, etc., etc. So let's get into it. So we're going to talk about group number one first, the guy that's interested in dating a single mom. I think in most cases it is because it is what is available to him. So a lot of things will create this. If it is a guy in his 30s to 40s, I think that when you're looking at dating somebody of a similar age, women oftentimes will have children by the time she is in her 30s, and especially by the time she's 40. It's actually more rare that you're going to find a woman that has had long-term relationships without some form of child resulting in it. Not to say that she was married, but even if she was just single, to have had a child is more likely by the time she's 40. So this is a tricky one, right? Like a lot of women would probably be upset by me saying that men are dating you because it's just what's available to him, but it's not the ideal situation. But I don't think that there's anything unhealthy about recognizing the fact that it's not ideal. Like I can even personally say in my own experience, I would not label my situation as the ideal situation. My ideal situation was going to be being married at 21 forever on, but there was a complete and utter breakdown, and there had to be another path taken. Like that path was no longer an option. Another reason why men will be very open to dating a single mom is because he's a single dad. I mean, come on, it would be hypocrisy for him to not be okay with dating a single mom if he himself is a single parent. And honestly, in my own personal situation, it's really nice having that in common with my partner. There's a lot of things that could be communicated, I guess, even if he wasn't going through similar things to me at times. But I think it's just easier to have had the lived experience currently and in the past, and just being able to support each other, realizing that we've kind of both been through it. It's just we relate to each other, right? We have shared experience, and I think that goes a really long ways. The other big reason I think that some men are open to dating single moms is because her being or not being a mom is not the most important thing to him. That there are other qualities that he's seeking that he's already had like a difficult time finding in a woman. Like dating is rough out there. It's really hard to find what you want and to be on the same page and decide together that you're both what each other wants without looking to see what else is out there constantly. So there's these other qualities that he's seeking in a woman that are far more important. All right, let's talk about number two, because I feel like a lot of my YouTube audience, guys, men, I feel like a lot of you are the absolutely not guy, okay? Because I will say in the last video, most of the comments were more falling into this category compared to like what my Instagram is telling me. So let's get into it. The number one reason I'm hearing from you guys is that you do not want to date a single mom because you don't want to raise someone else's kid. You don't want that responsibility. You view it as taking on that responsibility of a father and fixing her mistakes. And that comes without any authority over her or her child, which this is a struggle. It really is, especially early on in dating. Like, you don't know what that relationship is really going to form into. I think that, again, turning to my personal situation, I think that there is a high level of respect between me and my partner, and that we actually do really support and respect each other's parenting decisions, and we are very accepting of that. It takes time, right? You're not going to give a stranger essentially like authority over your children, but I think that as you develop into a long-term relationship, there has to be that parenting respect. And again, maybe that's easier for me to say because we are both parents biologically to children. It might be different, really, if you're a man that doesn't have a child coming into a situation where a single mom does have a child, and if she is not respecting your parenting decisions simply because you don't have a biological child, that to me, that at some point has to be a red flag. Like, that has to be worked on. The other reason that I keep hearing from you guys is that you, as the man, will end up being the last person in her life that she will care for because her kids are first, right? Like, my kids are always going to be first no matter what, kind of deal. And, she'll end up maybe even putting other people in front of you, like her original family, some family members, some friends, even maybe even the family dog. Like, all of that will come before you, which is honestly really messed up if that is happening. But I believe that in many situations that is happening because I have heard it from single moms, even personally, and then of course online on social media, where they will say it's always going to be my kids first, always, always. And look, this is what I say. This is my advice to any single moms that by chance are watching this. Hopefully I'm not triggering you too much, but once you decide in a long-term relationship, and especially if you actually remarry, you marry this man, and he becomes stepdad, he technically needs to come before your children, just like in the original formation of maybe your past marriage, where your husband does need to come before the children, because when you don't have that, everything else breaks down. There is no family, right? If there's no blended family, for sure, if things fall apart between you and that man. So you have to put each other first. And I don't think that it's a huge deal. Like, we don't live in times, or at least in the United States of America where I'm at, we're not like having to decide, are we going to grab our child or our husband and pull them to safety because we only have time to save one. Like, that's not what's happening. Your kids' basic needs can be met fairly easily, and you can meet then your man's needs and really make him feel like he's coming first. So we're not saying like, oh yeah, you shouldn't take care of your kids, like you shouldn't feed them, bathe them, and do all the basic things. Like, absolutely, that has to come first, but you should have plenty of energy and time to do both. Like, you should be able to do that. It shouldn't be a decision to have to make one versus the other. And if it is, man, you need like to get some help. You need to reach out. And that would probably be a very different situation. But I don't think that, you need to extend yourself so far and spoil children, because in the end, that might make them worse off. It will make them worse off. And then your man is going to feel like he's not appreciated and he's just being ignored and his needs don't matter. The other smaller detail that guys will talk about, and somebody mentioned this in the previous video, is that if you end up like moving into her home, because let's say, her kids are established, they have been used to living in this house, it's the house they've always known, and they go to school nearby. So what's the easiest thing, right? The man, the single man that maybe doesn't have any kids, moves in with her. And that is difficult. That brings on a lot of challenges, because that man might end up feeling like he doesn't have even a place to keep his things. And I don't think that's right. I think it's normal and very valid for a man to have those feelings. And I think that he really needs to talk to her about that. And she should be wildly accepting of that. And she should go above and beyond to make him feel welcome and make him feel like it is his space, especially if he is contributing financially, I'm assuming at that point, if he's living with her. The last thing that I'm going to say about men that absolutely do not want to date a single mom is that it's because they have this assumption that the single mom like easily dumped the father of her children, which is like a huge red flag to him, because it indicates maybe how she treats relationships that are very serious, and she has that lack of commitment that she just like ends things easily, and he doesn't want to be the next guy. All of the things that we just talked about for the man that doesn't want to date the single mom, I think that a lot of them are completely valid. I do. And I think that if you fall into this category, there's really nothing wrong with you being able to say, I'm not going to date a single mom. Or, you know, if you meet a woman and you get talking and then you find out she has kids, I don't think there's anything wrong, and you shouldn't feel ashamed for ending things. I think that you're just being very real with yourself and with her. Let's talk about group 3. This is the depending on the circumstances guy. So what I want to do is talk about the ideal situation, right? This is what you guys in this group should be looking for. And it's not to say that you need every one of these things, but I think that if you can sort of dive in and analyze these things very early on in the relationship, I think it will save you a lot of hassle. The first point is that at some point, kids no longer come first. I talked about this just a minute ago. They have to be willing, that woman has to be willing to have the mindset that she will eventually put you first before her kids in many ways, because that is just what needs to happen. If you don't have each other, there is no family structure anyways. The next most important thing is that the ex is fairly drama free. And this, of course, there's her side, his side, and the truth. But in either case, if she has like a really drama filled life and co-parenting relationship with her ex, she's probably contributing to it, which brings along some other red flags. So, you know, if you have a situation where you meet a woman and they actually co-parent very well together, and it's not because they're like best buds, it's just that they're very cordial with each other and things are really talked about, just, you know, talking about the kids, and they compromise, like that's all really good stuff that you want to look for. The next most ideal thing is that the kids are young. It will not push back against another father figure. This you guys don't really have that much control over, but it is something to consider when the kids are very, very young, especially if they're under 5. They won't even remember a time in which you were not in their life. Next most ideal thing is that there are house rules, and he can discipline just as a teacher or a babysitter can, guys. Like, at the very least, I don't understand these households in which a man comes in and he like is the bottom of the bottom and he can't even, you know, put a kiddo in timeout. He should be able to enforce rules just as the grandmother or grandfather or teacher or, again, babysitter should be able to. The next most ideal thing is that he is not given the burden of financially supporting the children. Either the biological father is paying his part, and or the mother is handling that responsibility. And lastly, ideally, there's going to be some child-free time to spend one-on-one together. Like, you need to be able to have this. And this is where, of course, it's more difficult for the single moms that have full custody and they don't really have any time away from their kids. That is a very challenging situation. But again, we're talking about the most ideal. And so these are things that I think that guys that fall into this category of maybe considering it should definitely look at. That is it, guys. I gave a lot of my opinions today, but I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything that I said today, and I will see you next week.